This is the Okayest Hunter podcast. Never pass on shooter bucks, because that's just meat in the freezer. It's your tag, you hunt how you want. This is Okayest Hunter.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Okayest Hunter podcast, coming at you from the Okayest Hunter podcast studio here at Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. If you're not from here, don't try to say that. It's not going to work for you, but that's okay. So a couple of things. You'll notice it's just me in studio, but we have a couple guests with us. We'll get them introduced in just a moment. In the meantime, they're just going to hang out and look at me awkwardly, which is fine. And Greg is out chasing his target buck, so he had a win that he had to hunt, so good for him. And Derek had to go be a family man because he is first and foremost a family man. Those guys don't have they have the luxury to not have to do this every single Tuesday like me because I'm a psycho. But check out Backwoods Grind. Go to backwoodsgrind.com if you want some of the coffee. I have some over here. It smells great. It helps this room smell good. That's why I keep that one bag in here. You can use code OHP for 10% off. That stands for Okayest Hunter Podcast. And what else we got? Just make sure I don't forget anything. Shout out to Dropkind Spirits. I like their bourbon. That's what I favor, but they do have a vodka and they do have a moonshine. And they are getting into more and more stores, so it's becoming more and more available. We don't have a discount code for those guys because if you're not 21, it's kind of awkward to go to the website. So it is what it is. And the biggest shout out goes to our presenting sponsor, Spartan Forge. If you are a listener to this show, you've heard of them. And if you're not, boy, oh boy, go check them out. 25% off of their application if you use code OHP. That'll get you 25% off on the web app or the mobile app once it launches. And they are like days away from a launch. They are waiting to get approved by the iTunes App Store. And as an app developer myself for the Word Hunt app, I know just what a pain in the rear that is. It's a damn nightmare. So they're at their, mercy until that thing gets done. But I do have the beta app that I'm running on my iPhone, and it is incredible. I shared some photos this morning to our story of the difference between that and Onyx. I also use HuntWise just for comparison to get a good roundabout sense of what the value add is. And their biggest value add, for those that don't know, is that they have 8 years worth of deer collar tracking data that they've collected and built data models for. And they built those data models by first hunting for terrorists, because the founder is a retired Army officer in the intelligence community of the Army. So he thought, if I can hunt terrorists, I can hunt deer. So he built data models using all of that data from collar tracking intel and pitted against collision data, weather data, all sorts of things. So it is bar none the best application to predict deer movement and how they're going to negotiate terrain. But then they have a lot of other features on top of that. And I will tell you what, their mapping visualization is so much stronger than everything else out there, baked in and included in that price. I think others probably have some better stuff, or like similar stuff, I should say, but you're going to pay extra for it. So that being said, go check them out at spartanforge.ai. I know there's a long rant, but I've been living in that app right now because I am all about trying to get into some properties where I want to target some deer. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and unmute our guests, and we're going to welcome to the show Jason Ronzaville. He is the executive director of the Pope and Young Club, and Dylan Ray, who is the marketing director. Hey guys, thanks for joining us.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we got through some tech issues, behind the scenes. So that's totally fine. It's happened more shows than not, if you can believe it. So, thanks for being patient with us while we get that figured out, guys.
The echo is gone. That's the main thing.
It was my fault, so I had to be patient. I could,
but I would never blame a guest like it's your fault. I just play I don't know, man.
It was totally Dylan. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dylan, for getting it figured out. We all learn something new every time we do this stuff. So I can see people pouring in here. We got a bunch of folks tuning in from around the country. We got listeners all over. So the folks that are tuning in live, obviously, the call-in number, I'll share that on the screen here. So if anyone does want to call in, you can do that. and we'll take some calls as we go throughout the show where it makes sense. But otherwise, feel free to comment, and if you have questions and things like that, we'll get into it. But I guess why don't you start out, Jason, with the title you have, the executive director. Tell us what is Pope and Young? Like, how long have you guys been around? I feel like everyone knows the name, but what are you guys all about over there?
Everybody's heard the name, but not everybody realizes everything that we do. We're 60th. This is our 60th anniversary. We just celebrated it in Reno in July. And so Pope and Young was actually founded to prove to fish and game agencies all across the country that a bow and arrow was a legitimate way to take big game, that we didn't have established seasons. You weren't allowed to use a bow and arrow in places. So that's basically what our records program was founded for, is to promote bow hunting across the country. Must have done a good job, because we've got it everywhere you go now. And our records program persists. We still have that going. We have 60 years of records, well over 100,000, animals in our books. And with that is millions of data points. You talk about overlays with how things are going and tracking and stuff. We have the biggest set of North American big game data in the world. So I'm kind of proud of that. In addition, there's a lot of other things we do. We support conservation endeavors that directly affect bow hunting. We just did a rebranding and kind of a refocus for us. We didn't change who we were or who we are. We just updated a little bit. And our 3 pillars of our organization are preserve bow hunting, promote bow hunting, and protect bow hunting. So if you're a bow hunter, we're a friend. And so we've got a new museum. We just moved it from Minnesota. It's going down to the Wonders of Wildlife with Johnny Morris. Hoping to get that up in the next year or so. And just a lot of things that we're doing on behalf of bow hunters. And as a longtime bow hunter and a fairly new Pope and Young guy, I didn't even realize it. I mean, when we're weighing in on, national topics or legislation that affects hunters or bow hunters, we're the only national organization out there fighting just for bow hunters. So
that's a big deal. I mean, and I guess the question I have is why the rebrand? Like, what were the pillars before, and why the need for it? Like, I'll preface that, when you have the record system and the scoring system, people are measuring, oh, that's a Pope and Young, right?
Yep.
It doesn't maybe speak to the hunter that's like never done this ever before, the adult onset guy that's brown is down, right? I think the greater population is the weekend warriors that are like more for the camaraderie and the experience and stuff. But then you have this other flavor of hunters that are very dedicated and serious, my co-host being one of them. So he has a lot of okayest moments, but he is a killer and he's chasing a singular buck right now. So he's got some ambition. So I think everyone's at a different journey in their whitetail hunting experience, and kind of where they're at. So I guess, is that part of maybe why the rebranding? Or
it is, and we had been, for a lot of years, we've been known as very exclusionary, and we really don't want you in our little club, and that's just not a good way to be. The world has changed a lot in the last 5, 10, 20 years, and all of a sudden we're set in kind of in an area that was 30, 40, 50 years old. And it didn't really lend itself to getting new bow hunters. I mean, there's a whole, generation. There's a couple of generations of bow hunters who maybe hadn't looked to Pope and Young. There was a time where if it was bow hunting related, everybody said, oh, well, it has to do with a bow or an arrow or a broadhead. Gee, what is Pope and Young's stance on that? And, when you have Fred Bear and you have all the guys that got us going back in the day, we were the heart, the heart and soul of bow hunting. And now all of a sudden bow hunting has, I don't know if it's gone past us, but we're not the central, not everybody, there's generations that don't look to us for the guidance and for the fair chase ethics and things. And so all of a sudden we're looking at this and we're like, hey, you know what? We need to get in front of these folks, because there's a lot of bow hunters out there that maybe just don't know who we are or what we're about. And that was a lot of it, is we want to be the voice of North America's bow hunters. And we've done that. We do that. We're a member of professional wildlife organization or associations. And so there's a lot of things we've done. We just didn't tell people about it. So with the 3 pillars and the refocus, we're able to, double down, if you will, so that, hey, here's what we're doing. Okay, should we do this over here? Does it fit the pillars? Maybe we don't need to dabble in that. And, should we do this? Absolutely. That hits 2 of the pillars. That's something we need to be, involved with. And so that's a lot of it. And we want people to come and check us out. And, if you're one of the guys out there that loves to bow hunt and you're looking for that Pope and Young buck, but just haven't connected yet, come check us out, because we're your bow hunting organization. We're representing you. Come and see us. You don't have to have something in the books to be a member.
Yeah, no, that's good to know, because I didn't know that. I think I think it was Dylan that I talked to, probably, it was sometime in the last 2 years, because my memory's fuzzy with the last couple of years we've had. It's been a total shit show. So the time warp is real. But yeah, that was like, our mission is, we want to shoot whatever makes you, our buddy Jared Norwood, who's down in Arkansas, he says, whatever makes your piss hot. And before that we said, whatever gets your heart pumping. But the Southern gets your piss hot thing is kind of funny. So that was kind
Arkansas.
of our plan.
I can side with that. I'm from Arkansas.
Oh, you are? Okay. Yeah. He says he's more Southern than cornbread. So he just has a lot of sayings. He's one of our personalities now. He's going to be a guest on the show soon. But it's a bit different down there in Arkansas with the heat and stuff. But that was kind of it. And I think, gosh, everyone wants those trophies on their wall. But there was, for me, when I started this, the catalyst was, there's a real issue with deer shaming. And when I started to see kids getting shamed, it made my blood boil and my spine itch and made me want to jump through my screen and strangle people. Yeah. And so instead of actually doing any of that, I try to put some positive spin and energy behind it. So we have a saying at OKS Hunter, we say never pass in the face of, you should let that thing grow or walk. We say, we'll let it walk into our shooting range or our shooting window, or never pass on making a memory or having good times outdoors. That's kind of the impetus for us. So it's really refreshing to see and hear about your mission, because I didn't know that that's what was happening. And once I heard that and saw that, I was like, holy shit, this is incredible. What a great lineup here, an alignment of missions, because we want to speak to everybody,
Yeah. Well, and
and that's the first time my mind really switched to Pope and Young is for everybody. It doesn't matter what you shoot or how you shoot it. I had only been working for the club for about a month, and deer season rolled around, and I went out and shot a deer, and I sent a picture to our past president. His name's Jim Willems, and I had just a week before been showing him pictures of this giant, and I'm like, it wasn't the big one, but I got one down. And his words were, if you shot it, it's big enough. And I was just like, it made Pope and Young. It was a 130-inch deer, but just hearing those words come from somebody who kills giants consistently, I was just like, he killed like a 192 last year or something like that.
Yeah.
And
I don't know what I would do with that.
Yeah. That was when I was like, Pope and Young doesn't just say they're for everybody. They really are, because they didn't care what I shoot or what, what brand I shot it with. It was just, hey, if you're a bow hunter, good job,
Yeah. And I want to eradicate that the biggest but. That statement should be jettisoned from anybody sharing stuff. And so we started, and I don't want to make this about us, but I just like to help set the alignment here. But we started, when we started everything, we learned that a number of people weren't posting pictures of their spike bucks or their forks or their sixes or whatever, because they felt uncomfortable. However, they were willing to share them with us to post. So now we feel like we kind of created this space for people to feel like they can. So anyone that tags us with the hashtag no buck shame, we'll go kill whoever is being buck shaming and saying things like that. We'll kill them with kindness. So we'll just stick the okayest crew on them, and everyone will just kill them with kindness, because we don't need more hate in this world, but certainly those people need to be drowned out, and we can just do that way by lifting up the people that have posted that deer that might not be that 150-inch deer. It might just be because it was their last hunt with their grandpa, or because it was their first hunt with their kid. Every hunt is very different.
And it's okay to have a different variety of hunts. I went on one a few years ago with a good buddy of mine for mule deer. And here's a guy who's killed just some monster mule deer. And we went out, and it was just a relaxed hunt. And he wound up shooting a forking horn. And we're sitting there, we take care of this buck, and we're sitting there, and he says, you know what? He says, this is one of the most fun, relaxing hunts I've been on in a while. He says, there's no pressure. It was just fun. It was just like the old days when we'd go do this for fun. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you saw my deer wall, there's a lot more forking horns than 190s on it.
Yeah. Well, there's more of those deer out there, right? But it's fun. And it's interesting. Like everyone says social media has ruined everything. Social media is shined a light on things and exploited things. Human behavior has always been there. Social media hasn't changed human behavior. But I think that, social media replaced the picture board at the, Gander Mountain, and it replaced when we used to actually take our deer in to get, tagged or whatever. We used to have to bring them into the station, and everyone would show up, and you'd all kind of hang out and get them all, registered. That's not a thing anymore, because you can do it here. And so what happens now is social media has become this place where there's like a rut report, and everyone sees all these big deer going down. And you're like, oh, it wasn't me, where's mine? And then you don't post your little one because you don't feel adequate. And, I say, F that.
I remember like it was yesterday. I was a 14-year-old kid hunting in the southernmost part of Arkansas, where deer don't get big. Like there's no chance of shooting a giant. And I shot a little deer, a little forking horn, and I was a 14-year-old kid, and I posted it, and I was on cloud 9. I was sitting with my dad and shot this buck, and sure enough, somebody commented and was like, "You couldn't give it a couple more years?" And I'm like, "For real? Like, I'm a kid, you're a grown man, and you're bashing my animal?"
Kill him with kindness.
Yeah.
It's and it's okay to have even the same things. I was talking to Dylan earlier, and it's this year I got to go on a couple of antelope hunts, and I went on one in Wyoming, and I was really excited because I thought, hey, this is a really good opportunity to shoot a book buck. I'm like, that's why I was going to this particular place. And I went there, and I saw a buck, and I field judged it. And I'm like, that's not a shooter. And then it comes in, and it starts drinking at the tank. And I've always wanted to shoot something at a water tank. And so all of a sudden, then, at 19 yards, and you throw your 10 power binos up, all of a sudden things seem a little bigger. So, at 19 yards, I've always wanted to shoot something in a water tank. I'm like, hey, this is my chance. So I shoot this buck, and my arrow went farther out the other side of that antelope than the antelope actually ran. And I got up to him, and I'm like, oh, nope, I field judged him correctly. He's not that big. And on that particular hunt, my expectations were a little bit higher. So it was a little bit on that one, a little bit disappointing. And then later in the year, in Idaho, I was on a DIY public land place I hadn't really been before, and real low antelope density. I just wasn't seeing a lot of antelope. I mean, I'd go days without seeing a single antelope. And all of a sudden I shot a buck that was the biggest one that I had gotten on camera in a month and a half. And it wasn't any bigger than the Wyoming buck, but all of a sudden, hey, this one is a true trophy, even though the
you had to work for it.
Size.
And it's like, this is hard earned, regardless of size. It's about the size of the hunt and the journey you're on, and the adventure you're taking. But then we bake in like a lot of humor. So I've only been out twice, and it was this weekend. I was Friday night and Saturday evening, and for archery whitetail here in Wisconsin. And so far, I lost my pair of boots, which are gum leaf boots. They're like $400.
How do you lose your boots? I mean, you just accidentally
came
untied?
I changed out of my boots at the, access point in the parking lot, whatever you want to call it. And the next day I was like going to get my boots, and I opened my tailgate. I'm like, where the fuck are my boots? where are my boots? And I was like, oh my God, I bet you I left them there when I was changing over back into my shoes to drive home. They're just rubber boots. They slip on, they slip off. Well, I went back today after work to see if they were still there, thinking like, who's going to take a pair of another man's boots? They're gone. Someone took them, which is strange. But that's an OKS 100. We call those OKS 100 moments. And we got a lot of those that get shared with us. And it's like we try to leverage human because you look at TV and YouTube and you just see everything's perfect. They got the buck they were after. They got it like on the first hunt. It was no big deal. They're not showing that they missed 6 other deer before they got the one they were after. They're not showing that they've lost their boots or forgot their bow or their release, or those things are edited out because it doesn't illustrate this level of I'm an elite hunter. So we focus almost exclusively on the shit show of everything, like that kind of stuff. So we've made stickers like "Don't forget your release," and
I saw that. That's so cool because I actually, true story, Sunday, last day of elk season in Oregon, and it's the first time I've bow hunting for 30 years, and I've never done it. I hop on my bike, and it's about a 3-mile trek up to where I had to hike into my stand, and I ride my bike down the way, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot my release. I can't believe it, because I'm always clowning people about that.
oh man,
So
that's cool.
I had to turn around, ride back up the hill to grab my release out of camp. And it's, another one, you talk about OKS moments. I had somebody this year, we're in a big herd of elk, and they were looking to get their first one. 2 spike bulls at 21 yards. I'm like, okay, just settle in, take a good shot, and I couldn't see. I don't have very good eyes, so I didn't see the shot. And I'm like, okay, how'd it feel? Oh, felt good. We're in there. Okay, so we have to wait 45 minutes for this herd of elk to feed off, so that we can even go out and look for this arrow and start the blood trail. Well, we wait for 45 minutes, and there's elk at 10, 15 yards for that most of that time. We go out, and by now it's dark, and find the arrow, and it was a clean miss. And had we known, it just, the new hunter, they didn't know and it was just, had they known there were, half a dozen other bulls there, they could have taken a shot at. They thought they couldn't imagine missing an elk.
That's what a terrible feeling. Oh my gosh.
I've got
Well, I shot a doe. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, just this last weekend, I wasn't hunting, but decided to take my kids out camping, and hopefully my wife doesn't watch this. Decided to take my kids out camping, and I was actually making some backwoods grind. I was sitting on my tailgate, and just had an AeroPress, making some coffee, and I've got 3 young kids, so they had been fighting and arguing and crying about whatever all night, and my son comes out of the back of my truck crying. And I'm like, dude, what did you do now? And he holds his hand up, and it's just pouring blood. And I'm like, what the heck? And so I'm like, what did you do, dude? And like, thought he just got it stuck in. So I don't know. And and he held up. The night before, I had went out and helped a buddy find a deer, and we gutted it and everything. And I didn't think about it. I just threw the knife in the back of my truck. I hadn't cleaned it yet, and so I just threw it in the back of my truck. And sure enough, when I was making my coffee, my son got in there and played with my knife and slit his thumb. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So then I'm like holding him, and he's screaming, crying, and there's blood pouring down my back from his hand. And it's like we get home the next morning, he's got like 4 Band-Aids around his thumb, and there's blood all down my shoulder. And my wife's like, what happened to you guys? Like, you went camping one night, and you look like you've been in a battle zone. And I'm like, well, it was the definition of an okayest night.
Yeah, dude, kids had a whole extra component. Good for you for going out on your own with 3 of them. I have 3. We have a newborn, so I'm on. You're talking to a zombie. I'm on like 2 hours of sleep. I'm sleeping, and so like having 3 kids and the third being newborn, it's challenging, but good for you. I'm always afraid they're like going to grab a broadhead or something that I left laying around, and I lost.
Oh yeah.
I'm using iron wool broadheads. Those things aren't cheap, as you guys might know. And
oh yeah,
I shot a doe over the weekend, full pass through. Never found her. I don't know what the hell happened. It doesn't make any sense. But I recovered the arrow and the broadhead. So I was like, well, cool. At least I got this back. I put it in my quiver. Well, on the hike out, it freaking fell out of my quiver and I lost it. So I lost the broadhead anyways. So I'm like,
we actually
boots,
backwoods
broadhead.
grind.
It's not a good weekend.
Oh, man.
Backwoods grind was actually the official coffee at our convention this year. So we were serving up backwoods grind all week, and we got a lot of good feedback. It's really good coffee.
Yeah, we were the first podcast they've ever sponsored, and they were my first ever podcast. So we took a chance on each other. Back in like 2017 or something. I think it's
No,
17. But
we had it going all week at convention. It was good.
yeah, it is good. I like their camp house, but I've recently really been enjoying like light roast blends. I don't know why. So I've been drinking their sunrise blend now, which is really good. I grind it up fresh every morning, and whatever I like it quite a bit.
Jason loves the Diet Mountain Dew blend.
Oh, I like the diet. Yeah, the Diet Dew blend. I'm all over that. You don't have to grind it. You don't have to brew it. You just crack open the top, and it's always.
You should
fresh
just start
and
saying,
ready.
"I love Mountain Dew, the diet blend."
Yes, that sounds.
Sound
It's
fancy.
very refined.
Mountain Dew, they do
Yeah.
quite a bit for the outdoors, though. They sponsored like a whole bunch of influencers. Like I think they gave some money, but I don't know what they were doing, but they definitely like were showing up everywhere for a little bit. Do you know anything about that?
I don't, but they should, because I know
Yeah.
especially during duck season, man, that's you can't find a case of that stuff anywhere. People are
Yeah, that
drinking
opens
it.
up here in our state. So this weekend, I think someone invited me, but I can't make it. But you guys aren't just deer. There's bear and elk and like all. Tell me more about the organization, because it's more than what I think people think about.
Yeah, it's originally it was designed just to get hunting seasons established across the country, and then it kind of evolved, and they're like, oh, look at this, you can take a lion with a bow or an elk or all of these different things, and in order to prove the effectiveness, for the North American big game, they started the record program, and it incorporates all 29 species of big game found in North America, everything: caribou, elk, deer, bear, bison. The whole sheep, mountain goats, the whole thing. And so it's and here's an exciting thing that at our convention in July that we had in Reno, Nevada, we actually recognized 10 new world records that were taken in the past 2 years. So you start looking at, there's 29 species. All of a sudden, we've got 10 new world records. What a testament to the current hunters that are out there, and to the wildlife conservation model we follow here. It just, wow. You always hear about, back in the good old days, the 50s or the 40s or whenever that was. I make the argument the good old days are right now.
That's a decent argument that I would like to learn more about too. Like I like those comparisons and those types of things. Like people get kind of like a fixed mindset on certain things, and they get stuck in a certain way. And then suddenly you just have to kind of shift and reframe how you're thinking about things, because like you just said, 10 new world records in 2 years, that's a big deal. That's saying something, that's not true about how it was before. Maybe there's less hunters currently than there were then, although that's changing because of COVID. I think that's a pretty big positive outcome of that.
Yep.
Some people might be mad about it because now their spot is crowded, but overall it's good for the space as a whole. We want this to continue on, and the way that that's going to happen is if more people join up. And so rather than get mad that you're getting crowded, be happy that there's more people entering the space, because it will be there for generations to come. And if not, it'll just die a slow death on a vine. We don't want that.
Yeah, it's coming. They're coming after hunters everywhere. You look at, I'm in Oregon, and they are putting legislation on the ballot. I think they got 100,000 signatures for this, which blows my mind. But they're putting a thing on the ballot that says you can't hunt, fish, farm. Basically, you can't do anything that harms an animal in any way. And they had 100,000 people sign this thing.
It's just a lack of understanding about what it means to be connected to your food and to what it is to harvest animal. Like, it's just weird to think that people believe that we just like to go murder animals or something. That's not what's happening here. It's like baseball. 99% of it, it's everything other than the hit. It's everything other than the kill. But then the benefit on the backside of that is that you're providing and you're bringing meat home, and it's organic, right? It's very having that connection to your food. You appreciate it much differently than you would that burger from McDonald's. You don't appreciate that. It costs $1. No one gives a shit about the burger from McDonald's.
Hey, you pack an elk out on your back like 7 miles one way. Oh yeah, people are like, hey, how about sending me some elk burger? And you're like,
How about
Oh,
not?
heck, no. 7
Bruh.
miles. Not
Yeah.
interested. Yeah. I've never met. I mean, I like McDonald's hamburgers, but I've never met one I'd carry 7 miles.
Oh my gosh, that's
You
a
know
good way
what's
to think
crazy
about
to
it.
me is You know what's crazy to me is like this idea of not hunting is so incredibly young. Like if you would have said 100 years ago, I don't believe in hunting. Well, you just go hungry. You know
Go
what I mean?
hungry,
You
yeah.
go, yeah. I mean, you
Yeah, what do you
either
say?
hunt or you
What do
go
you mean?
hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, I mean it's crazy how misconstrued it's gotten so quickly.
our
I
friends over at
can't.
I was gonna say our friends over at Oak Tree Dreams just commented. They're talking about the whole YouTube thing. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to that, but
Oh my gosh.
interesting to see what's gonna shake out over time there with that. It's very confusing because the almighty Google, which owns YouTube, is after the almighty dollar. And if they're making revenue and money on hunting content, it seems confusing to me that they would cut that revenue stream. I don't.
Well, and I don't think people get it. I mean,
No.
like I'm not going to say good friends, but you know, I know the guys over at the hunting public pretty well, and that's their living. I mean, that's you're taking somebody's living just because you don't agree with what they do. Like it's I mean, for some guys it's sure I like to make a couple extra dollars and host my hunting content places, but you know, for some guys that's literally their living and you're taking that away from them completely. And that's what infuriates me is I'm like these guys have worked hard to get to the point where they can do this for a living and now you're just stripping it away.
Well, they
Yeah.
helped build that. You know, if you
Yeah.
don't have people sending videos to YouTube, YouTube ceases to exist. And you know, but all of a sudden now they're just saying, well, we don't want that. And then where's it stop? Okay, well, you know what? We think you should buy a new car. So you shouldn't have any, you know, how to fix your car videos on there. We should ban
Yeah.
those. You know, where's it stop?
Yeah, why do you, that's a really weird line to draw because I'm sure there's other content that's a little bit more risque or concerning or whatever. I mean, geez. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, what
You guys
makes me
you've
mad
seen
is
a lot of
and
Blippy. That guy, like, what
you
if
know,
they cut it? They don't want your kids to learn from Blippy anymore, which I would actually appreciate.
well, that's what I was going to say is, you know, coming from the standpoint of a father and, you know, without getting too preachy on somebody, why is it that my kids can stumble upon, you know, videos of half nude people, but I can't post a video of me hunting a deer? Like it's insane that's where the line gets drawn is, oh, you're wearing camo carrying a weapon. Like that's just crazy to me.
Yeah, it's very confusing. We're not just like, what's that documentary on Netflix? Don't F with cats. Like we're not just
Yeah.
out here drowning kittens. Okay, this is
Right.
like we have a lot of respect for these animals. That's a whole rabbit hole in of itself. I think Seek One Outdoors has a big following. The hunting public has a big following. We'll see what happens with those folks. They'll get picked up by Waypoint TV, Carbon TV. Something will happen with those folks where they'll be compensated monetarily, and they have ways to make revenue outside of the ecosystem of YouTube itself. And hopefully, people recognize that. And by people, I mean big brands, and will chalk something up for them. But it is interesting. We'll have to just pay attention to see where it goes. It sounds like nothing's going to change in the foreseeable future. Sometime next year, we'll see what that looks like more.
It's, you start talking about, enjoying the animals and appreciating them. Our elk season just finished up here Sunday, and, I hunted, I was out there, gave it a real good effort, hiked my tail off, rode more miles on a bike than I ever thought I would ride, and just never had a chance at the bull I wanted. And then as I was driving back Monday morning, literally going down the highway, I look over and 40 yards off to the road in this little meadow is the most perfect looking bull elk I've ever seen. I mean, it's probably not the biggest one I've ever seen, but just a magnificent animal. And he was just standing there looking at me. And then as I slowed down, I was trying to get a picture of this guy. It was a neat experience. And so as I was driving away, I said, thanks, thank you for that. I appreciate it. See you next year. And it's, I didn't have to kill him to appreciate that experience. I couldn't chase him. Season's over. Hey man, you won this one. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, it's good to appreciate animals. I think like at some point in my life, I'll probably take to photography and shoot him with a camera instead, just because it's cool to see him that way. And it's always good to get him on camera that way. Are you guys drinking anything?
I don't think
you drink alone here.
I don't think
you guys
people
here?
I didn't get that memo, right? I had some.
I failed at my job. I got to put that in the calendar link.
We'll put that on Dylan. You know, we had to deal with so many technical issues that we forgot to get our beverage in place.
I usually call that out. I'm like, go get a drink because this is this is the audio deer camp usually, and usually with Greg here and Derek, it tends to get a little loosey goosey. We've had a couple out of hand episodes, so like this one's a little bit more on the path, which is fine. I'm okay with that, especially being on 2 hours of sleep. I'll take it.
Well, going back to your point, I don't think non-hunters understand like how much we truly love the animals we hunt. Like we put time and effort into these animals, you know, especially Midwest whitetail. I mean, where you get to watch a deer grow up and you get to track it for 7 years before you finally harvest it. Like you don't understand. Like I didn't just go out and harvest this animal. Like we had and it sounds stupid, but we had a relationship, you know, like I watched this animal from the time it was born for 6 years or for 4 years or, you know, however long. And we took pride in helping to better that deer's, the property that deer was living on. We took time to help provide that deer with food and water. And I mean, they just don't understand that part of it.
I can't comprehend how so you're going to eat a cow, which was literally bred to die, and it lived in a contained environment where it got corralled to its death. And then to get rid of all the farming content while you're at it, please.
Yeah.
Because
no kidding.
You're eating meat that was raised to die. At least the deer had a fighting chance at a natural life in the wild. You know, and they die an ethical kill by and large. You know, and I presume that's where you talk about the early stages of Pope and Young Club, where I'm guessing it was because people didn't think that a weapon like a bow and arrow could get the job done ethically.
Correct. Yeah, that was the standard misconception is that, well, you can't, you know, ethically take big game with a bow and arrow. It just doesn't happen, you know. And yeah, I've been a bow hunter for 30 plus years, and I had no idea, you know, when I started bow hunting at, you know, 16 or whatever, there was a season there. It hadn't dawned on me that, wow, somebody had to work really, really hard to make sure I had a bow season. And so it's something that we take for granted every day.
And that's one thing
somewhere between the Indians and us, they got this idea that you couldn't harvest animals with a bow. I mean, it crazy.
Yeah.
Well, that people probably view Indians or like Native Americans as a bit more savage or something like that based on how they've been depicted. But clearly they got the job done and it was effective. You know, they were able to kill and eat and it was fine. And it goes back for a long time. The trad archery stuff, the traditional archery stuff is really attractive to me. But I can't go down the rabbit hole right now with 3 kids under the age of 4. It's not in the cards right now.
Dylan just got his first buck with trad equipment just last week.
Yeah, well, okay, then I maybe need to raise the bar, but I have like some sort of problem with like starting businesses, so I have like too much going on. It's stupid.
Hey, take it from me, like that was. I don't have 3 under 4. I've got but I do have a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old, and that was my time to. And hey, I woke up early to shoot, but that was my time. No kids running around. Don't bother me. Like, this is where I'm going to spend my time just doing what I want to do. And it was tinkering with a recurve or going out and shooting the recurve. And it was, oh my gosh, even much more so. I used to think shooting a compound was therapeutic. And then you start shooting a recurve and it's like leaps and bounds different. And it's like, it's such a euphoric feeling when you do it, man.
It's more instinctual. You're calling on different parts of your brain that have been dormant. And so it's really got to be quite relieving to do.
So now I'm going to go the other way because some trad guys led me astray on my first antelope hunt. Because I show up at camp, and this is the first time I'd ever been on a guided big game hunt ever. And so I was pretty excited, and I got in there, and when I talked to the outfitter, I said, hey, you know, I want to book a hunt with you. You know, it's a guy that we've worked with. And so I've known him pretty well. He's been on our podcast. And so I said, hey, what should I do? And he says, you know, I got a bunch of Pope and Young guys the first week. They're, you know, trad hunters. You guys will get along great. Come in. And I said, okay, awesome. I'm all for it. And I'm talking to these guys at camp, and And they said, okay, the key when you're hunting, water for antelope is you have to let the antelope start drinking, and then you've got 30 to 90 seconds to just settle in and take a good shot. Well, I saw two big bucks that walked by my blind. It was super windy, so the wind was flapping a little bit. I think it just made them nervous, and they never came to the tank, but were well within, they were probably 30, 40 yards, which is, right in my wheelhouse, no problem. And so those trad guys led me astray by making me wait and pass two big bucks so that I could shoot the little one at the tank. So even though it was me that pulled the trigger, I still,
That's great though. I don't know. It's a more challenging hunt for sure. I know some of the guys like Jared Scheffler with Whitetail Adrenaline's taken to it. You see a couple other folks doing it. We had a guy in our podcast. I can't remember his name right now, probably because of the sleep deprivation, but it was a very different approach. He makes his own moccasins. He makes his own arrow shafts. He makes his own broadheads. He makes his own flint. He spear hunts, and he like kills these animals with bows that he makes his own strings, makes his own, like literally everything is made from scratch. And then he's literally killing animals like this. So he's basically an Indian, in modern time. And probably one of the cooler episodes I'd ever done, because I'm not saying that I would ever do any of that stuff, but it just goes to show like, wow, we have a lot of technology. I mean, I'm using a single pin sight. It's all decked out. I have like this heavy setup with these, inserts and outserts, and everything is dialed in, and I still freaking, hit a deer and can't kill it. Like, come on. It's interesting.
Yeah. And I respect the heck out of those guys that are doing that. I know just to be out there, with a bow, you're kind of limiting yourself, and you're putting restrictions on what you can do. You're not going to shoot 400 yards with a bow. And then all of a sudden that to me is a lot of restriction. And then all of a sudden you see guys that do it, and it's like, okay, now I need to get within, some of these guys 19 yards. That's as far as I'll shoot with the recurve or whatever it is.
Yeah, once you get to the point where you figure out how to play chess with these animals in such a way where you can get that proximity, that gap closed, then it's a matter of, well, now I want to up the ante and go to traditional something. I'm still working on that other piece of, I need to close the gap to get close to these animals. So until that happens, it doesn't make any sense for me to go to a traditional bow at all, other than, the therapeutic side, Dylan,
Well, and what sparked it in my mind was average distance on a Pope and Young animal, and I might speak off, but it's like 24 yards, maybe 27, Jason, if you know it, but it's under 30 yards. And I was like, well, I can do that with a recurve. Like if the average Pope and Young animal is shot at 26 yards, 24, whatever it was, I'm like, why not hunt with a recurve? And so that's what kind of switched it in my mind. And the best advice I ever got was take the words, "if I only had my compound," out of your mind. Like, because we can do that with everything. Well, if you're hunting with
if I only had my gun.
if I only had my gun, I mean, you can always take that step and just say, well, that deer was at 40 yards. If I only had my compound, I would have killed it. Well, you don't have your compound, so get 10 yards closer and shoot at it, or get 15 yards closer and shoot at it. So that's kind of what made me switch.
They say the same thing about sheep hunting. If you ever want to sheep hunt, or if you ever want to take a sheep with your bow, you have to leave the rifle at home. Otherwise, the draw is just too big. Even me last year, I antelope hunting, and I just didn't have the time to do it with the bow. So out came the Nosler 300, and she got her done.
Yeah, the boomstick. We did a clip. So we do a lot of content on our social channels, like all the video clips and stuff. You guys have seen it. And the one I remember doing last year is a scene from Billy Madison where he gets the dodgeball, and he's like, "You all are in big, big trouble now." It's like the moment you get your boomstick after archery season, like now it's game over, dear.
Yeah,
I'm playing games. Now I'm just going to shoot you from 300 yards if I have to.
I remember one time I made that switch, and I had hunted a long season and couldn't get it done, and so I got the rifle out, and I ended up shooting the deer with the rifle at like 19 yards, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. The first day I don't bring my bow, this deer's at 19 yards. I was mad at myself. But
so I've always hunted with everything, shotgun, rifle, whatever is in season. I want to hunt with it. But last year I just didn't have the time to spend, so I used a rifle on an antelope tag. And then this year I'm out there chasing them with the bow, and I'm like, you know, it's just a whole different world because I could have killed, 500 antelope with a rifle. And instead I'm, running around trying to shoot one with a bow. It's definitely a different mindset and a different goal when you're out there.
Yeah. Archery is a very intimate thing. I liken it to a few things. I've distilled it down to a couple of things. So when I first got into it, I didn't give a shit. I was in a different state as a young man. I wouldn't say I was trying to find my wife, but something like that. And my dad got me a gift card to an archery shop, and then he gave me his old Dart and Viper dual cam. And with that gift
Nice.
card, I was able to get it upgraded with a new sight pin, and you just get some things like dialed in with it to make it my bow. And it did kill plenty of deer for him, so like it was effective enough. I never did kill a deer with that bow, but I just didn't care. And then as the years have progressed, now I'm 35 and all I can think about is archery. The season is longer. I'm not like the kid from A Christmas Story bundled up in blaze orange gear that if I fall over, I can't get up. I like to say more like a ninja. I have like, I can move.
Pajamas and socks.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
and so I like that ninja approach to it, closing that gap, getting close to the animal. And boy, oh boy, it's become quite the addiction. It's certainly a way of life now for me. And my wife, she probably doesn't love it. I wouldn't say she hates it. She's not a fan. I just got my new saddle platform and sticks in the mail today, and so I call her on my way home, and she's like, "Your package arrived." I'm like, "Oh my god, it's like Christmas! I can't wait! I can't wait!" She's like, "Nah, how's the kids? Nah, how's your day? You just care about that, huh?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, how's your day? Yeah."
Yeah.
Like, I'm only a little mad that I'm podcasting tonight because I wanted to go test that stuff out, but time didn't permit. So I'll get it in there.
No,
Yeah.
we talked about that today, I think, Jason, on another podcast about how with a gun it's just over a bit too quick,
Yeah.
The deer steps out at 120, you shoot it, you move on. And with a bow, it just takes that extra time, and I think it was Chuck Adams who said, I just realized I want to be in the stand more. I want to spend more time hunting. And so
Yeah.
to do that, I picked up a bow.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then along the way, he has 200 animals in the book. So
Yeah,
Holy
on his way to
crap.
300.
he's on his way to 300.
First
Yeah.
mount. My first mount is at the taxidermist. They said it'll be done by the end of this month. We're just about there, so we'll see if next week if there's a deer on my wall or not in here. I doubt it. I don't think that they're going to make good on it because they got a lot going on. But
I shot a bear last year. It was probably September, and they said it'll be done by December, and I'm like, okay, we'll see about that. Well, I still don't have it back, so it's been over a year, so we'll see.
And Dylan, where are you out of? Jason, you're in Oregon. It sounds like. Where are you at,
Yes,
Dylan?
sir.
I'm in Wellington, Kansas.
Cool. And where are the headquarters for Pope and Young Club? Where does like the headquarters reside?
They're
Chatfield,
in
Minnesota.
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry, Jason. I took your spotlight there.
That's
We
all
got-
right. It's all good.
You directors,
Jason, you want to share the news about the Bass Pro Shop acquisition?
The Bass Pro Shop acquisition.
With the museum.
Oh, I think didn't we already mention that?
It was mentioned
Not
briefly
on this
but
podcast.
Okay. So yeah, we're actually working with Johnny Morris and his team. We've got they're adding a Pope and Young National Bow Hunting Museum to their Wonders of Wildlife exhibit down in Springfield, Missouri.
That's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, it is considered the pinnacle of the conservation outreach places, and so we're so happy to be part of that.
How exciting is that? So that probably took a lot of work to kind of get to terms with all that stuff.
Yeah, we don't have an opening date yet, but as soon as we do, we're definitely going to let everybody know. We're excited about it, and it fits right in with our preserve,
your three pillars seem to align pretty decent with the R3 movement, the recruit, retain, and reactivate. It feels similar. I know it's not the same thing, but it's along those lines a little bit, and I think that's pretty great. Are there any brands that you guys are really, really tight and close with or affiliated with that, are worth mentioning too, or no?
We've got a whole slew of corporate partners. Dylan and I work together on that, and and we've got a bunch. I know the folks at Kuyu were one of our first ones, and they've been around for a long time. We've got everything from, you know, Sitka and Kennetrek and Hoyt and Bear Archery. So a lot of really good companies that support us in bow hunting.
That's good to hear. I know Aaron Snyder. He's been on the show. We did some video content sessions with him about OKS moments, but he's also a guest on the show, and he's one of those that, you know, we have another hashtag we use almost every post called Shoot Deer. I think we have a shirt that says Shoot Deer or something, and the idea behind that is, first of all, don't overcomplicate things to shoot deer, but your only way you're going to get better is by shooting more deer or whatever it is you're after. And for us, we're big whitetail guys, so it's shoot deer. And that guy has shot more freaking deer than CWD has killed, I feel like. And he doesn't give a crap. He don't give a crap if it's a spike or not. You know, he's just like, whatever. And he said people will judge him for it. I'm like, who the hell would judge you? I would be scared to death to judge you. You would kill me. He's like a scary dude because he's such a killer, you know? But he's a very nice guy, and the company that they run is fantastic. He might be worth looking at too. He might align really well with your mission.
Yeah, I have a good friend of mine, and he's always talking. He's a very good hunter. He's the guy that's killed some just tremendous mule deer. He's got a bunch of stuff in the record books, and he always gives me a lot of grief. He's like, you know, Jason, he says, you know, I'm a great hunter. He says, all you are is just a killer. That's because you know, and it's because I just sometimes I just have a hard time passing that, you know,
never pass, man, never pass. You got it down.
You know,
I'm eating tag soup right now because I passed a bunch of spike elk in the last couple of weeks. So,
you know, you mentioned Aaron Schneider and Fred Eichler's another one of those. You know, Fred's killed all 29 animals in North America with a recurve. But you see these videos, and he shoots a forking horn or a doe, and he's amped up, like he is fired up beyond belief. And I'm just like, that's what it's about, man. Like, that's what it's about.
You know, and it's amazing how many guys that you talk to who are just hunted all over the world. You know, like John Fossil, and here's a guy who specializes in hunting stuff with a bow that can kill you, like dangerous game, African lions and brown bears. I mean, big stuff. And, you know, you ask him, you say, hey, John, what are you excited about? And he says, oh, I get to hunt in a tree stand next Tuesday in Wisconsin. And people get excited about that. It's like,
I think
what are you looking forward to?
I think his words are whatever's next. Like, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. Like, I might have a grizzly hunt planned next month, but right now I'm focused on does in Wisconsin. Like,
exactly.
It's awesome,
good old
man.
freezer queens, man. I was so jacked to take a shot at one this last weekend, just the way it all played out. And, you know, you miss them or you hit them and you don't find them or whatever. It's unfortunate, but it was damn exciting for me. And I would have been just as jacked to shoot a buck. It doesn't matter to me. Anytime I'm drawn back, that adrenaline is spiked pretty high, and I'm jacked. And I gotta get on video and stuff. And you can hear me I'm like freaking out. It's just a stupid dope, but like whatever. That's what tripped my trigger, quite literally. And you mentioned, Jason, you guys do quite a bit with conservation efforts here at OK Center. We donate. We're part of 2% for conservation, so we pay our dues to them annually, and then we also, on top of that, 1% of our revenue, our total revenue, top line, goes to them in addition to 1% of our time for volunteering efforts. So me and my co-founder will volunteer quite a bit throughout the year to give back that time. That's a very small, all of it's very small. Like, our dollars are not very big and our time is, you know, limited. But you guys are a big organization, know a lot of people. You work with big companies, you've been around for a long time. What are some of the things that you guys are doing, and how can others help contribute?
You know, there's quite a few things that we're doing on the conservation side. We've helped, I know we partner with Mule Deer Foundation and some others on some migration corridor studies. You know, in the West, there's I won't say it's new, but there's a renewed effort into finding out, you know, where these mule deer and elk and antelope, their migration patterns. And a lot of them are interrupted by highways and roads and housing developments and shopping malls. And so they're doing a lot of research now so that they can identify those and put the priority areas aside, and make sure we leave an avenue for these animals to get from their grocery store to their bedroom. And that was one of the things we do a lot with S3DA, getting kids involved in not only archery but in 3D and then also some of the hunting things. And there's just a lot of different things, a lot of bow hunting related items that we contribute to and lend either our voice or our expertise to.
That's cool. That's good to know. How can folks get? What I want to do here is bring the plane in for a landing. So I want to help explain, articulate how folks that are hearing this can get involved. What's the best modality for them, and then we can switch gears. And I want to hear some stories about some okayest moments before we, end everything. So maybe
you bet.
There,
I'd say
one way.
Go ahead, Dylan.
Chase, well, you can definitely further what I have to say. But one thing that people don't understand their membership. They might think, well, it's just $40. What are you gonna do with my $40? Well, what looks better coming at a state organization? 100 members or 10,000 members saying, hey, we represent 10,000 bow hunters or 100,000 bow hunters across America. And so your membership does so much more than just your $40, but it helps us when we go to these legislations to represent a bigger number of bow hunters across America and show, hey, we're the voice of these X amount of number of people, and the bigger that number can be, the stronger our voice. So a lot of people just don't really get what their membership does for them.
Yeah, when you're talking to legislators, it's you're walking in there with the hammer, and the more people you represent, the bigger your hammer is. And so, the more members we have, the bigger our voice, and the more people have to stand up and listen to us. So, the best way to get a hold of us, check out our website, pope-young.org. Shoot us an email. Our phone numbers are on there. You give us a call and visit and find out if it's for you, and, take a chance, jump on there, check it out, and take a $40 gamble to see if Pope and Young might be for you. If you're a bow hunter or if you're a hunter, it's, we're here for you.
It's cool. I just shared the screen for half a second there to show that pope-young.org is the website name. That's all good stuff. How would you say your efforts coincide with National Deer Association or Backwoods or Backwoods Hunter? What is it? Backwoods Hunter, BHA, Backwoods Hunters and Anglers Association. I always think backwoods should be two words in my mind.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers.
Backcountry. Jesus, yeah. I'm thinking backwoods grind coffee is what's happening. One day I'll get sleep. And they work a lot with trying to lobby on behalf of hunters for legislators. I've heard some weird. I like I'm NASCAR. I just swerve in between crashes. I don't really get caught up in any of the drama that goes on. I just do my thing. Come down here in my podcast studio, drink scotch and bourbon, and talk to people about deer hunting. But some of those organizations get some weird flack because there's some leftist agenda or something like that. But are there other organizations that you think are worthwhile? Like, we are happy to be part of 2%, because our money is going back to local conservation here in Wisconsin. Like, we get to pick the entity and then they just validate it, is how that works for those that don't know.
I would say any state agency, all your state agencies, and we're good friends with NWTF, Ducks Unlimited, all of those.
Okay.
But, when you look at those, they all have their voice, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation is for elk. Ducks Unlimited is for ducks. NWTF is for turkeys. We get to be for all bow hunters, no matter what species you're hunting. We get to encompass a very large array by being the voice of all bow hunters, not just whitetail bow hunters or elk bow hunters. But we get to be the voice of all those. But all of those organizations, if you're a turkey hunter, you should belong to NWTF. If you're a duck hunter, you should belong to Ducks Unlimited. If you're a bow hunter, you should belong to Pope and Young. And then I always suggest getting involved with your state organizations to fight for your own state. So I'd say they're all worth looking into.
That's a good perspective. Do you guys ever get confused or lumped in with Boone and Crockett?
We do a lot in conjunction with Boone and Crockett. In fact, we just came out with a joint. Our measuring system is based on theirs. There's some differences, but but mostly we've incorporated their measuring system into our records. And so we do a lot with them when we're looking at policies that affect the records program. You know, that's one of the first calls that we make, is to say, hey, what's your take on this? Because we want to align with them as much as we can. And there's a few differences, but we do a lot with them. Definitely partner with Boone and Crockett quite often. And we like to take our jabs there where we, you know, every time I'm around those guys, I'm like, okay, so you guys are what now? Because we're a hunting organization. You know, you have to actually go, you know, harvest an animal with a bow and arrow to get in our books. And Boone and Crockett, you guys are what? Well, you know, we're like that. And I'm like, so if I hit it with my car, will you take it? And they're like, Jason, yes, we will. But it's we have a lot of fun. They're a great partner, and definitely another good organization.
I don't know who did it. It should have been us, but you know, I just wasn't that insightful. Apparently, my marketing genius isn't strong enough. But someone did like Boom and Crockpot, and I was like, "Holy shit, that is really good!" I wish
he has that shirt.
That's a good one, man. I was like, "Damn it, that's good." I respect, you know.
I was in an airport not too long ago, and I had a Spoon and Crockpot shirt on. It said "Killing Tomorrow's Trophies Today," and then I had a Pope and Young hat on. And this guy was like, that kind of doesn't line up there. And I'm like, well, that's kind of the point. Like, I work for Pope and Young, so I'm taking a jab at Boone and Crockett. And, yeah, so.
That's great. Yeah, we thought it would be pretty clever with we put the Young and Pope and Young, and we'll stand behind that for the foreseeable future.
I like it.
Man, I rack my brain on stuff. I think I have like an idea pad of shit that I put out. Like, I'm trying to think of one for QDM right now. Like, you know, quality deer meat or quick deer meat or something like that. Like, yeah, we practice QDM, quality deer meat. You know, like I don't know, stupid stuff like that. It's funny. We have a lot of fun here, and it's good to talk to folks that have been doing this stuff for a very long time. That have a mission that aligns
with
that
because you're old, Jason.
You know what?
I know. Yeah, he's talking about all this experience at 35.
He's been doing this forever.
Yeah. And earlier he's talking about, he's like, oh, you know, I don't get all bundled up in the cold. I like to go ninja style. And I'm like, yeah, I remember when I was in my 30s and I was hardy to the cold. Now I'm you know, raised in the North 40s, and I'll tell you what, all of a sudden those heated gloves look pretty good on a cold day.
Yeah. Well, it's this time of year too. Like September, it's nice. It's fall. It's beautiful. It's just different. November's like, man, all the foliage is gone. It's freaking cold here in Wisconsin. It's not pleasant.
It's still like 95 here, so I can't.
Oh yeah, that's gross. Yeah. You should probably talk to Jared over there, our buddy down in Arkansas. You guys could probably jam out for a little bit. His Instagram handle is Native South. If you want to look him up, he's a hoot. He'll be on.
I wonder where he's at.
Yeah, you might know of him or something. He founded. We met because we were both being acquired, and it all fell through. So Where to Hunt was being acquired, and then he was being acquired, and our platforms were going to connect. He founded Our Tracks, which was a day lease platform similar to, you know, there's a bunch of them out there. And then Where to Hunt is the app that we have. So we were going to join forces under a new entity. And then it all fell out. But out of that blossomed this beautiful friendship of him and I. So I'm trying to think when the hell he's guesting on our show, because he just
Little Rock, Arkansas is where he's at.
There you go. Yeah. And he's invited us down there to come hog hunting. And I got to figure out when the hell that's going to happen. But he's booked for, Tuesday the 5th. So I think that's next week. So that ought to be, we're going to be drunk on that episode is what's going to happen. So it's going to be
now is that an Arkansas jab? Dylan, that sounded like an Arkansas jab to me.
Hey, you know, Arkansas is the only state mentioned in the Bible, so that's all I need to mention.
How about that? But you guys, Arkansas has quite the hunting heritage. Like, how many different species of animals can you hunt in that single state?
Oh man,
all of them?
It's quite a bit, and I took them for granted. I really did. You know, I moved when I went to college. I moved from the state of Arkansas, and when I moved from Arkansas, I'm like, wait a minute, I could have hunted bears my whole life. Like, it never even dawned on me, you know. And all my family still lives there, and so I actually still get back there and hunt once a year with my dad. But it was literally like the right when I moved from Arkansas, all of this was like, wait a minute, I could have hunted all this stuff in Arkansas and I never did. Like I don't know, but
Yeah.
Arkansas has a rich hunting heritage. Nothing, I say nothing giant, but it's not the quality of deer you're going to kill in Kansas. The bears aren't the quality you're going to kill in Canada. I mean, but yeah, it's a game rich state.
Yeah, he's done good over there. I think I don't know why I talk about him so much on this freaking episode. I'm gonna make him listen to it now, but he does like a lot of pack outs and stuff because it's so damn hot. You gotta get that meat quartered up right
Yeah.
away and get the hell out of there. And I was like, man, that's some hardcore stuff. Like I'm a sissy when it comes to hunting in the heat between mosquitoes and flies and all that jazz. And no thanks. I'll take a little bit more cold. I can handle that. But
Yeah.
to Jason's point, you get to some threshold and you got to put on like 2 layers of under layers, and then your sweats, and then your jumpsuit. Next thing you know, you're like, man, I just can't like move my arms the way that I want to. Like they keep doing this. Like, this is stupid. I can't touch my face.
Hey, you know what? I remember when I was hardy to the cold, and it goes faster than I wish it did.
Yeah. Well, you guys, what's each of you, if you can, if you want to, we got a little bit of time here. We'll go for a couple more minutes, but if you can share one of your okayest hunter moments, I would love that.
Dylan, you want to start us off?
I've got countless ones, man.
I've got more of those than I do.
What's the
any
best?
good
Yeah.
one.
So we got that going for you.
So Alex Plew, I'm guessing that's your name, commented and said, I work with a bunny, and I've got an okayest hunter moment with Nate Johnson. We were hunting hogs in Oklahoma, and who was hunting. And he's like, dude, I just found a whole slew of hogs. Get over here. And so I am running through the woods as fast as I can, trying to get over there. And Nate is running behind me with a camera. And I got caught up in some barbed wire, dude. And I fell harder than I've ever fallen in my life. And I fall, and my bow is in this hand. And just instinctively, I caught myself with that hand. And all of the weight from that run went right on the bow sight. I mean, my bow sight dug into the ground, and I'm like, oh, my Lord. And so we head back. I'm like, well, I'm not going to go shoot at a hog right now. So we went all the way back to the truck, and sure enough, I was shooting like 17 inches to the left because I just smashed my bow sights in. But so that was one. And then mentioning the release, this actually turned out to be a good hunt, but I get to my tree stand. I know I had my release on my bow. And I get to my tree stand, and there's no release. And it was a thumb release, and so I just clipped it onto my D-loop to walk to my tree stand. And I get to my tree stand, it was gone. And I'm like, what in the world? And so I call a buddy who lives like a mile from where I was hunting, and it would have been longer to get to my truck than to just go to his house. And so I just ran to his house in a dead sprint trying to get over there. So I grabbed his release, yeah, and I sprint back, and so I get back to my trees, and I'm pouring sweat, like I am just drenched, and I'm like, well, this hunt is basically done. Like I'm soaking wet, like it's got a shower. I just ran 2 miles, and it was early season, so it was like 90 degrees, and climb up in my tree stand, and I ended up actually shooting a really decent buck, and so that next day I went out and I just went through a cornfield, just zigzagging through a cornfield, and found my release. But sure enough, it just fell off on my way to the tree stand, and so I had to run 2 miles before I could shoot a deer. So,
that's why I use a wrist strap release, is because unless you forget it at camp, it's always there. It's hard to drop that one. I've got one that I'll share. I got probably half a dozen from the last month or so, but I was doing a little elk hunting, and the way it is we go about 3 miles down some old roads, and then we hike up through the sagebrush hills into this either a ground blind if there's 2 of us, or if it's just me by myself, I'll sit in a tree stand. And so I'd been doing it on my bike, and I was getting pretty good, because there's these water bars over the roads that keep vehicles out and keep the roads from eroding. And so, when you do it a few days in a row, you kind of learn, okay, you want to take this one on the left. And I was getting really good at going over them with my bike. And then I went in, a buddy of mine came with me, and he didn't have a bike. So we took his ATV in. I knew where we were going, so I was driving it. And with that, you just don't have to pay as much attention because, you're not at risk of dying. And so we did that for 2 days. And then the third day he left and I was back on my bike, and it's, 9 o'clock at night, and I'm riding with a headlamp, and I'm cruising along, and I misjudged one of these water bars, and I hit this. I just forgot which one it was, so I wasn't paying attention. I hit that thing so hard it knocked the headlamp off of my head. I'm lucky I didn't end up in the sagebrush. It was pretty brutal.
Oh my God. This is those moments where you're like, did anyone else see that? Because
Yeah.
your ego be so hurt, your pride.
Oh yeah, that's one of those things where you just, I'm not saying I'm the most graceful guy on a bicycle anyway, but man, yeah, that one, I was rolling right along, and you get 3 feet from it when all of a sudden you realize, ooh, this isn't the one you can go around on the left. You got to go right through the middle of it, and it's going to get rough. And yeah, that one jogged me a little bit.
Intense. Guys, thanks for guesting on the show tonight. I'm glad we worked through the technical issues early on, got that ironed out. With that all said, I'm going to end the live broadcast. So everyone that tuned in and commented along the way, thanks everybody. This will be live in podcast land this evening. That's how we roll. We produce the same night we record. So feel free to tune back in. And if you like what you heard, leave us a review and all that good stuff. Gentlemen, thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.